Item number 1, Public Safety Report, Chief Rob Landon.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the police department today. So I'm going to give a brief presentation. We're going to talk a little about the basic structure, our calls for service, the UCR Part 1 crimes, areas of emphasis for the coming year, then I'll open it up for any questions that you guys have for myself. We just did National Night Out August 4th of this year. Had a great turnout. It was coordinated by our volunteer coordinator, Vicki Owens, and officers Mike Stout and Troy Koski put it together, and they made sure that we had a good showing from the police department. We had the executive team, we had the council members, which I'm very appreciative that you guys had an opportunity to come out. Fire department was out there, and we had a great time going to all the different neighborhoods. So just a few brief pictures we'll just go through real quickly. The dog was out that night, our new canine. This was at Mahal Plaza. So we had there's over 15 neighborhoods we went to and over 1,000 different people that were out that evening. One of the neighborhoods on Hillcrest with the bouncy house, you can see that the families really got into it, and they wanted to make sure that the kids had a chance to interact with the police department also. Volunteers were out that evening. Motors were out. It was a very hot evening, and I know it made for a long but entertaining evening. And then Jeff here from Almond Street, we had an opportunity to be out of his neighborhood. The District Attorney Amanda Hopper was out there also. And if I'm missing somebody, I apologize. We had so many people out there that wanted to be involved. And just the different formats that we put on, we basically left it up to the individual neighborhoods what they wanted to do, whether they wanted to make it more of a fair event. We had 5 or 6 different apartment complexes, streets, just a little block of houses. It was just all different representatives and just represented all the different demographics from the city either also. So special groups wanted to actually have a neighborhood watch meeting, and then we just participated in that, let them kind of just guide us with what the questions or what the topics they wanted to discuss. But I thought it was a very, very successful evening. In my 22 years of department, it's the most participation we've had as far as neighborhood watches involved, and amount of people, and amount of council members and department heads also. So I felt it was very successful. The Yuba City Police Department, we are authorized to have 64 sworn officers. We currently have 10 positions that are vacant. I just attended a police chief conference down in Sacramento, and that's very common theme throughout the state of California. And I think it's a combination of a lot of reasons. One of them is that right now we're truly not the best opportunity for people. We've taken our lumps in the newspaper. So it creates an issue for trying to attract, make it more attractive, and that's what we're trying to do. We try to sell the department. We try to sell the city. We're currently down 10 positions, and what we're doing for our recruitment efforts is we have 3 different pronged approach that we're doing. We're going to try to sponsor people into the police academy. We're actually paying for their living, their tuition, their housing while they attend the 5-month academy. It gives us a wider range to pick from. Normally when we just say laterals or we just say people that have already graduated from the academy, it locks us down into a certain demographics and a certain part of the people that are applying. So this will open it up to almost anybody that's eligible. And the eligibility for us, the thing that gets us the most is backgrounds. People just don't plan far enough ahead to become a police officer with the realization that everything you do from the time you start school through your credit through everything else impacts your background. We're no tougher than any other agency, but we do have high standards, and we want to maintain those standards and not lower them in order to meet our officer numbers. The other approach that we're doing is we are now actively recruiting in the academies. California is unique in the aspect that academies are run through the junior colleges basically. So everybody can attend the police academy. There's no requirement to get into the academy, which creates an issue for us because we can go recruit the academy. We can get some good candidates out there only to find out that they wouldn't even pass the background. They have no chance at all to become an officer. But we don't know that until once we start the background. What we are doing, we're sending 2 officers and an HR person doing testing at each individual academy as they start up and try to get them at the very beginning to give us the best opportunity to attract the best candidates. And the third thing is, yes, Mayor?
question in regards to paying for their participation in the academies and so on. Are we able to have a requirement that says that you have to be on the force for 2 years to be able to, for us to recoup our investment in paying for the academy, or is it something that's just a crapshoot for us?
In the past, we were not able to because case law didn't allow it, but recently there's been some case law changes that has allowed us to have them sign up for a contract for a certain period of time once they come to the department before they can leave. And if they were to leave early, then we can recoup our, maybe not all of it, but a good portion of what we've invested in them.
Right, thank you.
The third prong is actually getting lateral officers. So we are advertising all the different police curriculum or the police circulars, also in the newspapers, and making sure that everybody knows that we are hiring right now. Currently, we have 28 civilians. We have 2 positions that are open: community service officer and a dispatcher, which we both opened the testing to. The community service officer, we had a really, really good pool of candidates, several with their master's degree, several overqualified. But because they don't have to go to the academy, we tend to get a very good pool to choose from. Dispatcher, we just opened it up, and we're hoping to get some good candidates also. We currently have 14.65 square miles of jurisdiction. We do it with 5 beats.
Before we go to the next slide, I think Councilmember Didwell had a question.
I did. Chief, one of the questions, and we spoke about this a long time ago, but with the recruitment efforts, have you considered doing testing of potential cadets prior to going into the academy with their written test, their physical test, psychological test, and their background before they even go in, so you know that you have a solid person that's going into the academy?
We can do that on a sponsored academy. Absolutely, we will do all that. We will do the, it'll be a test, it'll be the fitness. If not the fitness test, they can do that during the academy because you can actually build up to that. But we'll have a medical examination to make sure they're able to participate and get to that portion of it. We will do a psychological, we will do a background. So yes, to answer your question, yes, we will do all of that prior to sending them to the academy. That's the benefit of us sponsoring them. Before we make them that job offer, we can make all those conditions as part of the conditional offer.
Okay, great. My experience with corrections, that's how I used to do it. So.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
The top calls that we had for service in 2014, disturbance calls. Alarms has always been one of our higher calls. It's a 2. We never know if they're real alarms or false alarms. We're going to start doing more research as to what other agencies are doing. We did that with our alarm ordinance and made everybody register, and that did cut back significantly on the number of false alarms. But we still are 98, 99% of our calls on our alarms are false. So we do want to explore that more.
There's a penalty if they have more than 1 or 2 false alarms.
Yeah, I believe it's annually. They break it down in the annual for the billing cycle, and I think after 2 alarms, there's a fine, and then each one after that.
Does that help reduce it, or is it still?
It has that with the fact. Plus, we're making them have permits, which the county doesn't do. So it creates some issues when you don't have the responsible person to come back to. This way we know who the owner is, who the installer of the alarm is, and the company that installed it also. There are some there's a lot of other approaches to attack this, and I think Sacramento's exploring one right now where it's a two-time call before the police will respond. I'm not saying we're going to do that, but that's something they're looking at. It has to be two separate calls before they'll respond. Welfare checks is our third follow-up, and basically the right on down the line. And those are the top 10 calls for 2014, which is almost exactly what it is for 2015. Part 1 crimes. We've talked about this before. They're broken into 2 different categories. You have your violent crimes and you have your property crimes. Violent crimes are rape, aggravated assaults, homicides, anything basically that's a violent crime that rises to the level of a felony. Property crimes are burglaries, motor vehicle thefts, and larcenies. From 2005, and this is reported to the FBI, this is basically how many crimes per 1,000 people. So back in 2005, 47.5 people out of 1,000 experienced some type of Part 1 crime. In 2015, we are down to 29. The numbers have dropped, and we had some lower peaks or lower areas back in the 2009 that we saw it rise back up. We are at 29 right now. We are up in violent crimes, almost 25% 5% from 2013 to 2014, and 6% from 2014 to 2015 as of now, if it was exactly the same for 6 months and just multiplied it out by 2. That is reading a bunch of stuff and talking to the chiefs. There was an article in the Sacramento Bee this past week, and that's exactly what the rest of the state is experiencing. Slight decrease in property crimes, which is a surprise based on the amount of more offenders that are no longer in the prisons, that are out in the streets right now under less supervision than they used to have. And violent crimes has risen over 25% in Sacramento for the past 6-month period. So we're about the same as the rest of the state. We're experiencing the same type of things that they are. Motor vehicle thefts are up again this year. Not a whole lot like we had 2 years ago, but they are back up. And I think a lot of that goes to the Prop 47, which are the reduction in the crimes from some felonies are now misdemeanors. Some misdemeanors are less of a penalty than it used to be. So there's just less threat on them to go back to prison or to commit. So it does create issues, and you have the best. They go to college, basically. When they go to prison, they come back, they learn their trade, and they're better because they've been caught before and they know what not to do. So we do experience that. That one can go away. Sorry. This is basically all the crimes broken down from the last 3-year period. And 2015s are basically a projection, just multiplying out by 2. That doesn't mean it's going to be accurate because sometimes we have peaks during the summer where there's higher crime rates during the summer when there's longer hours, and then usually around Christmas we also see a spike. But if everything were equal, these were the numbers that would project out, and that is just an actual number of 1,213 larcenies 3 years ago down to 1,096 this year. Basically, by looking at that compared to other similar cities, our crime rates, the national average were below for 50 to 99,000 people, which is the category that we fall into, obviously. Almost 3 times less crime rate than 11 years ago. We have a very huge presence in our gang task force and the Net 5, which has been very beneficial to us to make the force multiplier where we're not actually, we can rely on other agencies to make, when we have big crimes, big cases, we can use their people to help us solve the crimes and to work together. Crime rate is trending up, statewide trend, but we're more focused than ever to continue to make this a safe community. We continue to do our ComStat, which is basically meetings that evaluate the trends that are going on and to use our resources in the areas that we're seeing the problems at. Our priorities for 2015, obviously staffing is first and foremost. Our number one goal as a police department is to make sure that we're able to answer 911 calls. So we have to put our staffing out there. And what that does, it creates voids in other areas like traffic and detectives. So it makes the caseload on the detectives a lot larger. And for traffic, obviously we're writing more tickets. And as Councilmember Buckland knows, the more tickets you write that are hazardous, which means there's a contributing factor to an accident, basically, the lower your accidents that involve injuries are. There's a direct correlation that we see. We've written probably, I think, about 15% less tickets over the last year due to the fact that we only have 2 traffic officers as our normal 5. As a result of the 16% decrease in hazardous citations, we've seen almost a direct correlation in the number of injury accidents, which is about 15 to 16%. So, and that's a National Highway Safety Traffic Administration study that they've said that basically for every injury accident, in order to reduce the number, you have to write 25 hazardous tickets. It's not a quota, it's just a number that's out there. We don't make anybody write tickets. Gang Task Force Net 5, we need to continue to do that. We've had the council support. It's been very good. We are actually carrying probably a larger burden than some of the other agencies right now as they experience the same staffing issues that we do. Leadership development, we continue to work with the rest of the city's executive staff and the other player, the 97%, to make sure that we are focused on developing leaders for the future. We also use the state posts, which is the police officer standards training, to make sure that all our sergeants and our supervisors are trained to a level that's higher than the rest of the agencies in the state, or at least as high. Capital improvement projects at the PD right now, if you were to go over there, one of the big things that Diana's staff was able to do was to get us cameras throughout. We had antiquated cameras. They were they were getting old. And now if you go over there, you'll see cameras all over the place, which is it's a big benefit for us to make sure that our staff is safe and that the public's safe while they're out there, because we are the place where most of the custody exchanges happen. We have a lot of incidents in the parking lot. Now we have the ability to view that because there's not always an officer in the building. Clean and safe Yuba City. We continue to focus on Plymouth Street as our #1 area right now, and the surrounding areas. The Almond Street area is big focus directed enforcement. We have seen a significant increase in the number of citations that we're issuing as a result of the ordinance that the council passed several years ago, or a couple of years ago, the camping ordinances and some of the other ones that were kind of piggybacked on that. Body-worn cameras, I know that's a really big hot topic in the United States right now, accountability for the police department. We welcome that. We want to be involved in that, but we don't want to put up an inferior product because we know what happens when you have bad angles on cameras that tend to not show what or accurately depict what actually happened. We have money set aside from that, earmarked, but we are currently in the test phase because we want to make sure that the cameras that we are using are the best type. We've gone through several test models. We've talked to other agencies. We're using our insurance alliance, or whatever they call it, the NCCSIF. They've actually given us 4 cameras. They've given out to all the different members of the insurance group as a grant. So we're using their 4, although we have money earmarked to buy one for all of Patrol. We don't want to get into that yet until we find the 4 best. It creates a lot of issues for storage. That's a large dollar figure. And the other one is manpower that we didn't anticipate. The district attorney is asking us for any prosecutable offense that involved a camera to make sure that we show them the video or send it along. And that is a big manpower expense that we don't have currently. So we are experimenting with a lot of different things right now, but that is our goal, to have the body-worn cameras up by next year and have all the officers on patrol and on the street wearing them. The GREAT program, I just wanted to talk about, we have all these different things on the back end, the enforcement, but we also have the GREAT program, which is in the schools right now. Since 2011, the 2 school resource officers, along with probation from Sutter County, have gone to every single school, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. It's either a 6-week program or it's a 12-week program that gives alternatives for the for gangs. It gives them incentives for staying out of it, and it gives them a face that they can put on for a police officer and make it more comfortable for them to talk to. So in that time frame, we've given over 143 classes, and we've reached over 3,600 students. And that's our goal, is to make sure that every student in Yuba City area, whether they're going to be coming to the high school and they're from us, regardless, any city in Yuba City Unified School District is impacted and gets to participate in the GREAT program. So, and we feel that's very significant for us as we've started to see a decline in the gang violence. Realignment Prop 47, I won't touch on that too much. I think we're pretty familiar with the problems that that's presenting. Volunteer and Citizens Academies, we also realize that we need to figure out a way to get more people at a lower cost. We understand the budget restraints, and some of the best resources in the city is our volunteers. I think we have over 40 volunteers at the police department right now. We're expanding them. We're getting one now who just came from the Air Force, who spent 20-something years in training. We made him in charge of our training program, learning to be in charge of our training program. So it's a process. It's a little bit different, but we are trying to utilize, and we continue to give 2 academies a year. The Walton annexation, that is still at the top of our list. That's another, we're working with the county right now. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions that you may have.
Through the mayor.
Go ahead.
On your gain, I know we're working hard on that end, but along with the realignment and Prop 47, going back to corrections, those folks are coming into our community, and that means an increase of gang and drugs. Are we looking at upping our task force to get ready for that incoming?
I think we're exploring all of our options right now. Of course, we're limited by our manpower and resources, but I think probation has done a tremendous job of tracking who's coming back to our community and making sure that we don't get the dangerous people that are falling through the cracks, make sure that they meet all the criteria of Prop 47 and realignment. We are definitely exploring all the different options and how that is going to impact us, though. We definitely see it impacting the community.
Yeah, and I foresee it impacting us greatly in the near future. So although we may not see it completely right now, but they're going to let go of these folks, and we have several prisons around this area, and those folks are going to come. So just I would like to look into more avenues to ensure that we're picking up on that end.
Absolutely, and I think what we lack in manpower, we try to make up on the technological aspect of it, of tracking them ahead of time and doing things beforehand.
Absolutely.
But that's a very good point. Appreciate that.
Right. Other comments?
Mayor.
Yes.
Chief, some questions, I guess, and then observations that the public has been making. I encourage them oftentimes when I get a phone call is to call you directly. And I'm sure that you've probably heard the very same complaints that I'm going to voice in just a little bit. But out of 64 sworn positions, there's 10 vacant, leaving us obviously really quick at math down to 54. How many positions are currently off on, let's say, workers' comp or any type of administrative action currently?
I would say 4. There may be 5, but either 4 or 5.
Okay. I mean, staffing is I think one of the critical components of the police department. I think we're all very proud. The citizens are proud of our police department, all of our public safety efforts, whether it be police or fire. And some of the areas that I think are important to the public, again, are the narcotics activity, and we're fully staffed there. Am I correct on that?
I think we're actually down 1.
Okay. In the gang unit itself?
Down 1 also. Well, let me rephrase it. We're down 1 in the gang, but we're fully staffed in narcotics.
Okay. And patrol, we're trying to keep that fully staffed, correct?
We have a full complement. It's not as many as we'd like to have, but it is. That's who our priority is right now, is assigning to patrol. Yes.
And then the traffic unit is down
3 officers.
3 officers, and our reserve complement, which can help with proper training, augment some of our staffing levels. But I mean, what's our staffing level with our reserves currently?
Level 1 reserves that are fully qualified, we have, I believe, only 1 right now. But we have several that are going to the program to complete their field training. Because as you know, in order to be a reserve, you have to be the same exact qualifications to be a police officer. So most people don't want to be reserves like they did in the old days, because they have to do the entire 4-month, 5-month academy and everything, all the other requirements in order to do that. So it makes it hard for us to keep somebody to invest that much time than to come back and work the 16 hours. But yes, that would be absolutely.
So, I mean, what my point's going to come down to is recruitment. And as a policy board for Yuba City, I think, and I'm not going to speak for everybody, but else on the board, but for myself, whatever it takes to do the recruitment to get up, don't be shy. Ask for that. We need the full complement out there. We need to do whatever we can to recruit quality candidates to come to work in Yuba City and be committed community partners. And I think with that, I mean, whatever. It may be an incentive program internally for lateral recruitments in which, if somebody can bring somebody from another agency, yes, please steal. And we're proud of the fact that we'll take the very best from other agencies. And I think that anything we can do to bring those on and then also working with the academies to be first in line to be able to snag these folks up. So then I get to the point of the traffic and the fact that the traffic enforcement has fallen down, and that's where the majority of the complaints are coming from. Is individuals have almost weekly. I get comments on not seeing officers making traffic stops. That the driving habits of the Yuba City citizens and those that use our roadways in Yuba City are getting worse and worse. The common thread is not, I would have expected them to say running red lights. That's not it. They're saying they're running stop signs. They're making U-turns in the middle of roadways in front of traffic. They are just basically out of control. And then the bicycle safety, especially with this week as school has started, that's where I got a whole host of complaints, is the number of kids bicycles not wearing helmets, Gray Avenue kids unloading out of Gray Avenue. riding their bicycles all over, kind of helter-skelter through traffic. None of them with safety gear on. And certainly that's that educational component that I think we can move forward with, and anything that we can do. Again, I would ask that we be advised of that. On the camera side of things, on the body cameras, one of the things that I would like to point out, and it's coming to light quickly, is the cameras can give the wrong information to the public. And so with caution, I would simply ask that we look at cameras that have ability to sync to universal time codes. So when a video is being shown side by side with one from another officer and the officer engaged, let's say in a shooting, hypothetically near a university in the Midwest, that the time that they're looking at is the same time. And that the information fed to the district attorney in that case was poorly represented in video because the two angles that were being shown were simply synced off of time, off of a clock, not off a universal time code. So if it means more for that kind of equipment, I would certainly encourage the police department to look at the very, very best that we can come forward with for displaying any type of action that may happen. It will, I think, keep the national media away from Yuba City, for future type cases. But thank you for everything you do and everything the department does.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Just the incentive thing real quick, because I'm glad you brought that up. That is something we are looking at. In fact, I was going to bring you guys a magazine from PORAC, which is the state magazine that shows what the different incentives are. And they have several that are, well, we're competing against Anaheim. And when they put a flyer out, it shows Disney World there, and it shows the helicopter and the baseball field for the Anaheim Angels. So we do have competition, and the lateral incentives, though, is huge, and we certainly are looking at all those. We're exploring that with HR right now.
We've got the Gold Sox and the Feather River.
We'll bear that in mind when we do the video. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions of Chief? All right. Thank you for
Thank
your
you very much.
presentation.